Paru, please start.
Paru, unmute.
Paru, unmute and start. I think VC is there.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I, Dr. Parumita Chakraborty, Associate Professor in SRM Research Institute, welcome everyone for this inaugural program. It is indeed a privilege and immense pleasure to welcome all the dignitaries and each and every one of you for the Dr. Parivender Research Colloquium and the International Conference on Recent Advances in Applied Sciences, Technology and Health 2021. In the quest for wisdom, it is important to pause for a sincere prayer. Let us rise for the invocation.
சீராரும் நடனமென திகழ்வரத கண்டமெல்ல எக்கணமும் அதிசிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிரிவுகளும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இசையும் புகழ் வழக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிழமை திரும்பியான செயல் மறந்து பார்த்ததுமே பார்த்ததுமே பார்த்ததுமே.
Thank you. Please take your seats. It is my pride and pleasure to invite Director of Research, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Professor K. Ramasamy, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning, everybody. At this juncture, I would like to place our foremost concern and submission to the Chancellor of this university, Chairman and Pro-Chancellor Academics, for initiating this graduate conference in the name of Parivender. On behalf of the university, faculty and research scholars, I would like to invite our Vice Chancellor, who is the building block of this university ever since it started as a coaching institute, then with a Nightingale School, Polytechnic, Engineering College, transformed in 2002 as a deemed university. We have crossed several steps, and today SRMIST is one among the foremost research contributor in India. As you are aware, out of 100 contributing scientists from India, 50 are from South India and especially from Tamil Nadu, in which 6 are from SRMIST. Besides that one, we have 24 candidates contributing in the nature-related journals, and in December 2019, one of our scientists in association with the Asian Network published the Human Genomic Project, wherein Nature published the article with a front page recognition for SRMIST. Besides this one, this very initiative of Parivender Colloquium is to interconnect different faculties within SRM University and its sister institution, so that the research scholars and the research faculty is known to each other, and what is the type of work that is carried out, and in which way we can always make it possible for a multidisciplinary contribution so that SRM Institute of Science and Technology is known throughout the world. And we take the leadership role in the research capacity building. At this juncture, I would like to place before you all, especially to our younger scientists, that Niti Aayog has come out with a special higher education vision and then Innovation 2020 report. In this, we are supposed to be in the 43rd position among the world. But in creativity, we are at the 64th position. Please go through the whole document. It is worthwhile for any researcher, faculty member, and the PhD student to realize where we are, what are all the steps that are required to take forward the research contribution from India to the global system. Now, especially in the medical arena, Ayush is coming up in a larger way so that in next 2 years, some of the plant-based products can be converted into drug and made it possible without any heavy metal available to the whole world as a first product from India, for which 1,500 crore is allotted. It is very difficult for our researchers to go through what is happening in India. Unfortunately, we are aware of what is happening in the outside world through nature, science, and all those things. Most of our association publications are curtailed. A few have joined with already established publishers, and it is high time that how best we can always exchange our data and how to protect our data so that any outcome will be available to us first and then it is translated to other world. At this juncture, I would also like to welcome our registrar, deans, directors, faculty members, guides, and my dear student friends associated with PhD program, MTech program, and undergraduate research. SRM is one university which is unique in supporting the students in several ways, whether it is inside the system with a full fellowship, off fellowship, and then tuition fees waiver. Besides that one, we are also sending our own students study abroad program. And then for research also, we are debuting them. We are supporting them in the Fab India program. We are also supporting them for the entrepreneurship skills. Besides that one, we have separate support system for our PhD students through fellowships, overseas trips, and student exchange programs, all that. Faculty is also supported in many ways. Besides the externally funded projects, and we are equally supporting to the income generated by the external funded schemes. We are spending almost 5 times more money in research and capacity building in this university. Since this colloquium is specific for our student friends, we have to identify the best skill available with them. The reason being, most of the PhD students entering to this university can be divided into 4 categories. Whenever they get net cleared candidates, either through CSIR or through UGC, we are supporting 10,000 rupees plus the money drawn by them as a fellowship. Besides that one, whoever is crossing the net, we are providing the equivalence to that of the money provided by the central government. On our own, university is also giving the fellowships. And besides that one, wherever there is need for analytical support or any financial support, we are extending that one. There, with all these positive characteristics, there will be always plus and minuses in any system. If at all our students find anything negative, they can always inform us. We will work through, and we will also progress through your effort in succeeding to contribute for the country. Without you, who share the percentage to the level of 56.82% in the total population, everyone calls India as young. This younger generation has to build, show the path, and contribute, and we are here to guide you. All our faculty is tuned for that one. At this juncture, I request our younger friends, handhold with our faculty, contribute in the maximal way so that you are identified as a pinnacle for the country's development. I sincerely welcome all the participants from India and outside India and all our external speakers, invited speakers and contributors for joining us in this major endeavor. And I would like to invite our special invitee Padma Bhushan from IIT Madras. I'm sure that his credentials will be presented to you by some of our colleagues. At this juncture, SRM with folded hand invite you all, welcome you all for this conference. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your inspiring as well as informative speech. May I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Professor C. Muthamichelvan, to deliver the felicitation address. Sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Very good morning to all of you. Respected Padma Shri Professor T. Pradeep, Director Research, Dean Research, all my other colleagues and the research scholars. It's quite a pleasure for me to take part in this Dr. Parivendra Research Colloquium 2021 and International Conference on Recent Advances in Applied Sciences, Technology and Health. For those of you who are new to SRM, I would like to brief you about the SRM University as a whole, and then some emphasis on the research that's being carried out at SRM Institute of Science and Technology. SRMIST is a multidisciplinary university having programs in engineering and technology, science and humanities, medical and health sciences, law, management, and agriculture. It's also a multi-campus university where we are spread across 4 campuses, 3 in Tamil Nadu, 1 in Uttar Pradesh. We are category 1 institution declared by the Ministry of Education and the UGC. If you look at the student strength and the faculty strength, we have close to 52,000 students and about 3,200 faculty members. One of the advantages of this institution is that being a comprehensive university, we also have diversity in students. We have students from every part of our country, and about 5% are from the other countries. We do encourage our students to go for a semester abroad program where they can spend about 1 to 2 semesters in a university of repute, come back to the campus, and then they can share their experiences with their peers and the teachers, which will help us to improve the system. We also happen to send our faculty members to different institutions so that we understand the best practices and try to adapt those things wherever possible. We do offer online and distance learning programs. In terms of accreditation, rating, and ranking, we are NAAC accredited. Our score is 3.55 on 4. which has fetched us the category 1 institution. 5 of our engineering programs are accredited by ABET USA. 4 of our engineering programs are accredited by IET UK. So it means that we would look for the quality in all our educational programs, not only pertaining to a particular agency. We want to take the best of what is available in each agency. In terms of international rating, we are 4-star QS rated institution. We are ranked by THE, and internally in India, we have been doing consistently well in NIRF ranking. Government of India announced what is called as Atal ranking of institution on innovation achievement. This has been practiced for the last 2 years. Year before that, when it was launched, we were adjudged as the 3rd best private university. And then last year, we moved on to the 2nd position. We hope to reach the 1st position this year. In terms of research, our budget, 6 to 7% of our annual budget is earmarked for research. We have close to 310 government funded projects worth 150 crores. 32 industry research projects with an outlay of 8.7 crores are being executed. 23 patents are granted, and number of papers published so far is little over 26,000. And today our university H index stands at 94. In the last 2 years, SRMIST secured number 1 position in Nature indexed publication category among the private institutions in India. 10th best among 20 Indian institutions considered for benchmarking based on Scopus publication. We have been focusing on increasing the number of full-time research scholars. And today we have close to 1,500 full-time research scholars. Now we find that we have enough full-time research scholars and we want to bring in slots for postdoc fellows. We have earmarked about 100 seats for postdoc fellows. We encourage our faculty members to carry out research by supporting them in terms of seed grant, startup grant, and selective excellence projects. Now, the idea of such things is to encourage our faculty to apply to different funding agencies so that they can get bigger grants and then do the research work which will be socially productive. Now, as far as the facilities are concerned, we have established state-of-the-art facilities for fabrication of materials and characterization. Few such facilities are XPS, HRTEM, high-resolution SEM, micro-Raman spectrometer, thermal conductivity measurement system, single crystal XRD, and powder X-ray diffractometer, VSM, cryogenic probe station. Then for computational physics, we have high performance cloud computing facility. So such are those facilities available at SRM. And if you consider the bio-related programs, we have Nano LC MS, NGS, Bioplex, Microarray, Digital PCR, and these are some of the facilities available at SRM. There have been always a challenge in encouraging our faculty to carry out research since we have moved from a teaching institution to a research institution. And therefore, we wanted to bring an impact in the research activity in the campus. And accordingly, we happen to institute what's called as the Research Institute, where about 30 faculty members were recruited, all with postdoc fellows with international exposure. And from then on, the research activity picked up. And today, we have about 100 faculty members who are actively involved in research. We have also a category of what's called as research track faculty. As I said, it is numbering about 100 now, and in the years to come, we would like to increase those numbers, and at some point of time, about 60 to 70% of our teaching staff should be research intensive faculty. They are working on cutting edge research in the field of energy, electronics, environmental, healthcare, and materials engineering. Notable fields are 2D materials, lithium and sodium ion batteries for electric vehicles, thermoelectrics, nanofibers, air filter, electronic nose sensor, and solar cells. Then, utilizing waste heat into energy is one of the thrust research areas of our institution. Faculty members are also working on metal oxide nanoparticles based targeted drug delivery for cancer diagnosis and therapy. Development of nanocrystalline ceramics for bone regeneration and tissue engineering is another highlighting contribution towards health. We are also in the process of establishing Center for Energy, Center for Climate Change, and Center for Artificial Intelligence. All along, our focus has been predominantly on the incremental research, which normally leads to publication of papers. Now we want to move towards what is called as the innovation research, where the outcome will be a product and will be useful to the society. Our another target is, in the next 10 years, we want some of our faculty to get the prestigious Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize. I am confident that there will be a lot of takeaway from this conference. The organizers have roped in quite a good number of experts. I strongly believe that you will have a good interaction with them, and then that will be helpful to improve your research. So with these words, I wish the conference all success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and all the encouragement that you give us always. Now I invite Dr. Balchandra Kakade, Associate Professor in SRM Research Institute, to introduce our chief guest, Padma Shri Professor T. Pradeep, Institute Professor, and Deepak Parekh, Institute Chair Professor of Indian Institute of Technology, Madras.
Thank you, Dr. Paramita. Yeah. It's indeed a great pleasure to introduce today's chief guest, Padma Shri Professor T. Pradeep, a renowned professor of and scientist of India. So here he has studied PhD in chemical physics in the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and did postdoctoral fellowship in University of California, Berkeley, and Purdue University, Indiana. Currently, he is the professor and Deepak Parekh Chair Professor of IIT Madras, and also he received the Lifetime Achievement Research Award of IIT Madras, and he is designated as an Institute Professor of IIT Madras. So his research interests are concerned. He's thoroughly involved in designing of molecular and nanoscale materials, clean water surfaces, instrumentation, and business incubation. So he has done excellent contribution in water purification, pesticide removal, and detection and removal of arsenic contaminants. He has started incubation centers for water purification. He has also contributed in several social responsibility, for example, adoption of schools. And if you see the list of his awards and recognition, it is noteworthy. He's a recipient of prestigious Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize of 2008. He is also a recipient of the prize of Third World Academy of Science in Chemistry in 2018. He's also a recipient of Padma Shri, which is the 4th highest civilian awards in the Republic of India, Nikkei Asia Prize. He is a fellow of all Science and Engineering Academies of India, Royal Society of Chemistry, Third World Academy of Science, and American Association for Advancement of Science. He is also a J.C. Bose and a recipient of a J.C. Bose National Fellowship of 2015. And he has published more than 700 research publications in several reputed publishers. For example, Chemical Reviews, Accounts of Chemical Research, Angewandti Chemi, ACS Nano, Chemistry of Materials, Physical Review Letters, and so on. The list is endless. So he's also associate editor of several reputed publishers like ACS Sustainable Chemistry and Engineering. And he holds the editorial boards of Asian Journal of Spectroscopy, Oriental Journal of Chemistry, Nano Reviews, ACS Applied Materials and Interface, Particles, Surface Innovation, Nanoscale, Chemistry and Asian Journal, Scientific Reports, International Journal of Water and Wastewater Treatment. I would say he is an institution in himself. Sir, we are honored to have you here today. I request Professor Pradeep to address the gathering of DPRC and RASTH 2021. I request Professor Pradeep.
Very good morning to you. Let me thank Balachandra Kakade for this introduction. I am here because of Professor Napoleon, who invited me some time ago, and he has been persistent that I should participate in this. I just finished a class. I have a class to go to at 11 o'clock. Today is one more class, a very intense day, 4 lectures. So it is quite an intense day. I thought I would tell you a few things, and for that, maybe a little later on, I would like to share a few slides with you, just a few slides with you. Well, I'm so deeply impressed by this institution. And your director was here with Dr. Napoleon a few days ago, Dr. Ramasamy. I was deeply impressed by this institution. This institution is one with which I have been connected as well. One of my students, along with Dr. Vanavaiko there, as the Vice Chancellor, we had this student graduating some years ago. His name is Purushothaman. And so this was possible only in SRM. He is now 85 years old. An institution grows because of dedication, devotion, and values. It grows because of its deep respect for its roots. Respect for roots for SRM is evident from the name itself. This institution has etched roots right in its name. It is a memorial. So I have therefore tremendous respect for this institution. And I have even more respect because it started subsequently a research institute. And from the VC, I understand that it is growing and growing, and it has placed itself at the right place nationally and internationally, and its ambitions, as the Vice Chancellor enumerated, they are in the right direction. I hope and I wish all the very best for this institution. So looking at this program, looking at energy, looking at health, looking at environment, looking at agriculture, look at computing, looking at artificial intelligence, big data, analytics. What is that connecting all that? I thought I would tell you a few things about that in the next few minutes, and that is all the time that I have. To me, water connects everything. And energy, of course, it connects. Health, of course, environment, agriculture, computing, big data, analytics, all of these. In a larger context, it connects with sustainability. So there's a picture taken from my home yesterday morning, looking at the IIT campus. Well, looking at world as a whole, obviously world itself is a cycle. And that cycle is the cycle of water. So on the one side, we have water and carbon dioxide, and the other side, we have sugar and oxygen for a chemist. But on the one side, it is nature. The other side is energy. The one side is nature, the other side is health. So this whole thing represents many facets of the theme that you are presenting today. In greater detail, we can go into that in great detail, and I study that in tremendous detail. So if you look at this whole water cycle, the whole planet civilization is nothing but taking water through this cycle of photosynthesis. And that is one side of that cycle. And civilization as we know it is taking the reverse side of it. That is sugar and oxygen and all its products and petroleum and everything else back to carbon dioxide. And that cycle has all along been closed for a long time because we roughly produce the same amount of carbon dioxide as we fixed carbon dioxide. But we opened it up in the past 200 years, 240, 30 years, and it has become this enormous catastrophe looming large on the planet. And that is why we talk about energy, environment, sustainability, etc. today. So looking at it, on the one side, we fix a lot of carbon dioxide and taking it back for all the plants and animals and all that, we just have to produce just about 29 billion tons of CO2 for us to live, for animals to live, for everything else to live on this planet. But instead we produce 260 billion tons of CO2, almost about one order of magnitude CO2. Of course, it is not just CO2 that we produce because carbon dioxide does not fix just the carbohydrates. It, of course, produces alkaloids, terpenes, and many others, smaller things. And when we open it up, we are not only producing carbon dioxide, we produce nitric oxide, sulfur dioxide, many other oxides, and many different things. And we pollute not only air, but also water and everything else. And that contributes to our health. And today, we study that in great detail in Tamil Nadu, in rural population. One of our studies show that diabetes in rural Tamil Nadu has gone to 17%, whereas nationally, even among the affluent, it is about 13%. Why did it happen? Because we opened up the cycle in many different ways. Even in rice, we find arsenic. And the entire population is fed with agrochemicals of many other kinds. So we have no time to discuss this, but this is this large cycle. That large cycle, of course, provides a huge number of opportunities too. So looking at this water, I was amazed by seeing these numbers the other day. Just produce quality water sensors, which can sense things in water just by looking at it. Just by looking at it, don't put anything inside. Just look at it, non-contact. Can you sense contaminants? And I was surprised, and you might be surprised too. Just the water sensor market for domestic segment in the country is over 1 lakh crore. So obviously there is a huge thing out there. Just the water harvesting, or let us say rainwater harvesting market in the state of Kerala alone is 7,500 crores. So this means that water, of course, there are numerous possibilities, but I wanted to talk about just a few to say that new sensor is a very big thing, and absolutely nothing is there in the segment that I just talked to you about, non-contact sensors. And if you have all of these, today's world, and we are talking about, and 560 people are in this meeting today, and that is because we can connect with everyone. In fact, there is one day I was talking to a conference where it was attended by some 2,000 and odd people. It is all possible because of big connectivity that became possible with these sensors. It gives you a huge amount of data and data analytics. And that data obviously is going to tell us about our health, our changes in our health, a large number of socially relevant issues. And this obviously connects your water technologies with your artificial intelligence. And new purification methods are plenty, and many of your 2D materials people might be interested, already working on these. And water requires equitable distribution because it belongs to everyone. And that means new controls. And your founder, Parivender, would be excited to look at new controls for equitable distribution of water. Digital governance is an automatic outcome of that. And smart water is smart world. And that subject area of connecting sensors and analytics and water analysis and new water methods and new controls lead to a completely new domain of research and science and advancement called hydroinformatics. And that is very similar to bioinformatics. And that is something that we need to work on, and we are constantly, interested in this. But SRM is one place where such things can happen. Such science, today, if you do in great detail, you understand that in water, you have everything. Let us say if a new drug is introduced, in 1 week later, that drug is in your wastewater stream. And if you analyze that, it tells you about the market. It tells you about the population. And you know that COVID was found also in wastewater by analysis of this kind. So that subject area is called water-based or wastewater-based epidemiology. That takes you to another big dimension. How can you understand the health of the whole population based on what is found in water? What is being distributed in water? What is being periodically changed in water? What is that change in comparison to the change that is happening in North America or Europe? This is going to tell us about development. This is going to tell us about development indices. So when I talk about this whole subject area, a glass of water opens up infinite ocean for me, and that infinite ocean connects with all the subject matter that you have presented. And this, of course, opens up very many issues wherein institutions have to work on. And I think that Dr. Parivender and team should look at a new kind of institution around water. And this is our research park at IIT Madras. And in this, we have incubated a small center called the International Center for Clean Water to take science of water, build science of water, translate that science of water, as your VC said, going to some new form of innovation-driven research. And I wish you all the very best towards this direction. And I wish this conference all success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was such an enlightening talk. Now, I call upon Professor B. Napoleon, Dean Research, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, to give the vote of thanks.
So thank you, Dr. Paru. A very warm and graceful morning to one and all as we come to the closure of the inauguration function of the Dr. Parivendra Research Colloquium, DPRC 2021, and International Conference on Recent Advances in Applied Sciences, Technology and Health, RASTH-2021. I deem it is a great honor to propose a vote of thanks to all who have helped making this event such a wonderful to be successful also. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to all the DPRC and the RASTH-2021 organizing committee. I also grateful to all the dignitaries present through online, professors, speakers from India as well as from abroad, colleagues, faculty members, friends, and dear students. So I heartily thank the eminent chief guest, Padmashri Professor T. Pradeep, Institute Professor, and Deepak Rakesh, Institute Professor, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So his presence today on these occasions has immensely enhanced its importance on research. I once again thank you, sir, for all your synergetic effort. And thank you so much for accepting our request to come over here in spite of your very, very busy schedule in between two classes. So you are for inspiration for most of the students. So for me also indirect mentor. Thank you, sir. Again, thank you so much for coming over and spending your time for us. And it is my great pleasure and privilege to honestly thank Professor Muthamil Selvan, Vice Chancellor, for being with us on this day and sparkling our curiosity to scale up to the greater. Thank you, sir. I am very glad to thank our Registrar, Dr. S. Ponnusamy, for his continuous support and encouragement for conducting these two events. Thank you, sir. My sincere thanks to Professor K. Ramasamy, Director of Research. He enormously scattering the thought of DPRC as well as the international conference, making it materialized today. He meticulously scrutinized every detail to see the success today. Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks to all the deans, head of the departments, directors, faculty members, research scholars, students for your minute-to-minute support and guidance for encouraging at every point of the organizing this great conference as well as the DPRC. I'm also thankful to the administration in general for rendering us with all the possible support towards organizing these two events and all the delegates for their enthusiastic participation. So I'd fail if I don't thank the conveners of this conference, Dr. Balachandra Kakade, Dr. Anand Kumar, Dr. Paramita Chakrabarti, Dr. Ram Kumar, Dr. Sanjay Kumar Mehta, Dr. Venkata Prasad Bhatt. I have seen last 3 months, they have been continuously working to make this happen. Thank you so much for all the organizers, especially conveners and other organizing committee members of these two events. Thank you so much. I thank all the fellow researchers who greatly helped us organizing these two programs. I also thank all the non-teaching staff for the generous support. I take this, again, I thank the press for giving the excellent coverage to our program. I thank you one and all. Thank you so much. So thank you. I hope these participants and others will enjoy the talk for next 3 days. So from the most of the speakers from outside as well as outside of India as well as from India, I hope it will be a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now let us all rise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Our technical session is starting at 10:45. So kindly be there. The technical session is going to start from 10:45 today. Thank you.
So everybody should enjoy the virtual coffee provided by the organizers.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Sanjay? Dr. Sanjay?
நம்ம அதான் இவங்க எல்லாம் வராம விட்டது அதுக்கு கிடைக்கும்னு பார்த்தா கடைசியில இப்படி ஆயிடுச்சு.
அவருக்கு இது மட்டும் ஓப்பன் ஆகும். அப்புறம் என்ன பண்ண என்னோட க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிட்டு சார் என்னோட ஓப்பன்
Dr. Sanjay?
என்னோட லிங்க் ஓப்பன் பண்ணி அது முதல்ல பண்ணிருக்கேன்.
இல்ல அவருக்கு 3 ஓப்பன் ஆச்சு சார்.
ஆமா சரி சார்.
வீடியோ ஓப்பன்
வீடியோ ஓப்பன் ஆகல ஏதோ ப்ராப்ளம் ஆயிடுச்சு. இல்ல அது பயங்கரமா டென்ஷன் ஆகி சட்டு மட்டும் செக்ரட்டரி.
Yes, Dr. Malar. Hello.
Sanjay, 10:45 we are resuming.
Yes, yeah, Malar. Just I talked to Mr. Vijay Reddy. He is ready. Okay. So I think you are connecting him. Somebody is connecting him. We have given link to him, right?
Okay. So like he needs to slide share, right?
Hi, ma'am. Vijay Reddy here. Yes, we need the access.
Yeah,
ma'am.
Okay, sure.
மெசேஜ் அனுப்புனேன் இந்த போஸ்டர்ஸ் நம்பருக்கு.
ஏதோ பேசல சார்.
ஓகே பரவாயில்ல ஒண்ணு இல்ல.
Mr. Raja?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Can you make the speakers of this session co-host?
Yes, ma'am. I'll make it.
Yeah. Can you mute the other? Yes. Mr. Raja?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Vijay Reddy and Dr.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I have seen both of them have been made co-host.
Yeah, I have made them.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Good morning. Welcome back to the technical session. Now I request Dr. Sanjay Kumar Mehta to take over. Dr. Sanjay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Malar. So very welcome after the inaugural session. So there will be, in this session, there will be 3 talks. The first 2 talks will be on the publication related. So the talk will be given by Mr. Vijay Reddy from the Elsewhere and Dr. Subra Datta also from the Elsewhere. So Mr. Vijay Reddy, Mr. Vijay Reddy is done engineering degree and he has also obtained his master in management, and he is associated with Elsewhere Research Management Team since July 2014 as a solution manager of the South Asia. Mr. Reddy, as a mentor, was part of the prestigious project improving research output and quality at state universities, Government of Andhra Pradesh, Higher Education Department's initiative. His project focuses on the benchmark research output and quality, enable RD and RD cells at major state university, adopt best practices, build local teams and matrices to track, measure and track research. He has been involved in the consultancy projects catering to requirements of the government, academic institutions and corporates. Prior to joining this Elsewhere, Mr. Reddy has worked at GS1, a global standard body. He contributed in developing National Hospital Registry for India, which provided visibility and transparency to treatment costs for validating insurance claims submitted by beneficiaries. It enables great analytical and reporting to drive decision-making by various stakeholders in healthcare insurance industry. He has also worked for NIIT Limited, Intense Technologies. And with these words, I would like to invite Mr. Vijay Sekhar Reddy to deliver his talk on research trends in India.
Thank you, so much, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, sir, for the short introduction. Let me share my screen first. Yeah, so good morning, one and all. First of all, let me congratulate SRM for this grand platform which has been created where a lot of knowledge exchange is happening. So this will for sure in the long run strengthen the research at various institutions. Right, so today's my talk is for 15 minutes and what I'm going to cover is, I'd like to share some numbers, right, and the title is the research trends in India. That's what I'm going to do today in next 15 minutes. So before that, just excuse me. Sorry for that disturbance. So before that, let me give a small introduction about the company which I am actually representing. Right. So myself, I am representing Elsevier, as been told by Dr. Sanjay Kumar Mehta, sir. Right. So what exactly we are doing here is we are actually serving the academic, corporate research institutions. And of course, we are also engaging with the governments, the policymakers, and funding agencies with the high quality data sources, which helps them to take certain decisions, understand, right, the research metrics, the strengths and the weaknesses of their entities, and we are enabling them to take the right decisions and move in the right directions. In the similar way, I'd like to share the India research trends. A lot of numbers would be there, a lot of metrics which we are going to discuss today. And for that, I am taking the help of a tool, right? It is called as a SciVal tool, right? So this is the platform on this particular SciVal tool runs is on big data technologies, and the data flowing into this system is Scopus data, right? And what is that? It does basically is it slices and dices the Scopus data into various research metrics. So you'll be witnessing that in a moment, right? So anyone have any questions in between? Please do put in a Q&A box so that in the later point I can try to answer the questions which I can. So let's get into the numbers now straight away. So this is how it looks. scival.com is how I just enter into. Right, I'll go to the overview module. Right, and what I'm doing here is I'm trying to select the window of 2017 to 2019. A lot of noise around me, kindly excuse me for that. So why 2020 I'm not considering because 2020 data is not complete yet. So it's very safe that we can look at these particular numbers. They are complete in all aspects, right? So between 2017 and 2019, these 3 years, right? So our overall India country overall numbers stand at 533K, right? The scholarly output, in which the open access contribution is at 25%. That means 25% of overall scholarly output went into open access journals. So they are freely available, everyone can access to it, right? And rest of the 75%, you know, they are in non-open access, which are on subscription based articles. So like in journals, they have been published in. So when it comes to the impact of these numbers, which you have seen of 533K, the citations per publication stands at 4.9, right? So that's what the run rate is, 4.9, right? And the authors who have contributed are 585K, right? And both are growing actually, right? The authors have grown close to 25% year on year, okay, compared to the previous 3 years. And of course, the scholarly output also has grown 27% comparing to the previous 3 years. But what I see here is the total number of authors are more than the total number of scholarly output. So research productivity is on the lower side, less than 1. So this is the one point, which can be improved. That's what I feel. Personally, I like to highlight this point. Research productivity can be further improved. When it comes to the field weighted citation impact, the quality of it. So it's a normalized matrix basically. It all normalizes the different citations patterns of different fields. For instance, in medicine, we have a different citation pattern. Engineering, we have different citation patterns. So all put together, that gets normalized, and the field weighted citation impact stands at 0.85, whereas the world average is 1, right? So we are 15% less cited than the world average when it comes to India between 17 and 19. Let us come down a bit here and look at where our strength lies. Okay, so let me change the view here. Let me change, I have selected the QS subject classification. Let me select ASJC, which is a Scopus default subject classification, and see where our strength lies, right? This is all sheer based on the number of the scholarly outputs. So our strength lies in engineering. Most of the publications are coming from the engineering, and then computer science. These are the top 2 in terms of the numbers coming out. We can further look into in engineering what are the other sub areas, but I'll just park this for some time. Let's pause this. We'll take it in the next tab which I'm going to cover. So if you look at the research topics over here, right? So I'm selecting here the research topics here. These research topics are, okay, the top 5 research topics where India has produced, right? So from various institutions all put together. Please let me know if I'm going fast. Okay, I can try to explain a little in the slower pace too.
No, sir, it is fine. Yeah. Sir, you have muted. You have muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So silver nanoparticles are the most researched topic. And if you look at our field weighted citation impact is 1.79, much above the world average, right? So if you look at the country level also, we can check overall, right, at the institutions who have contributed here, right? We see here Anna University, VIT and Periyar University have contributed a lot. They are in the top 3 when it comes to the scholarly output. And if you look at SRM, we stand at 34. Okay, scholarly output is what we have contributed, stand at 13 number, right? So this is what is where we stand. Then we have another couple of interesting, what do you say, the topics where we are actually doing a lot of research, right? Something in the metallurgy also we are trying to do. Then stretching sheets, right? So this is the one interesting one. Let us look into that and see who is contributing here. This is the second highest in terms of the scholarly output. VIT has contributed a lot in this. Then JNTU, right? Then if you look at our position, we see the Venkateshwara University and Geetham also. Like most of the southern universities are contributing a lot, right? Then let us look at where do we stand in this particular topic. We have only 11. I think this is not the focus area from SRM University, but otherwise we have contributed. Okay, and 11 is what the total number of publications coming out in this particular topic. Right. So this becomes the top 3. Okay, the topics which are in India, coming out from India. Most of the researchers are focusing on these, have focused on these between 17 and 19. So let us further scroll down and look at the publication in top journal percentile. What does that mean? Right. So this talks about how many of our researchers have put their publications, chosen the journals which are in top 10% bracket, right? So 14.7 is what the number goes in top 10% journals. And the journal level, what do you say, the metrics which have considered here is site score percentile. And if you look at towards your left-hand side of the screen, here we look at the impact at the article level. So we are looking at the publication in top 10% most cited worldwide, right? So there are different brackets. How many of our articles in top 10% most cited? So 8% of them are in top 10% most cited worldwide. What is the world here? World is the Scopus database. So that's how we need to read. So 14.7 is what, okay, the percentage of our publication in top 10% journals. 8% is where, okay, our publications which are part of 10% most cited bracket. So let's further go down the international collaborations. So this is the volume at which we are actually trying to collaborate with other institutions, okay, crossing the country boundaries. 17.2 out of 100, 17.2 are coming out of international collaborations. These becomes the performance indicators. Why? Because if these 4, like academic corporate collaboration, international collaborations, other 2 which I have just discussed, if these are being taken care of, means these metrics have been really, okay, monitored properly, right? So your all the quality metrics would be really, okay, in very strong position. It helps you to achieve different goals which are which are linked to the research. That's why these are called as performance indicators, right? So let us look at the collaboration part, from where we are getting the good impact, right? So if you look at the international collaboration, we have seen the volume, right? Now 17.2% is how India totally as a unit is collaborating with the foreign university institutions. It comes to around 92,000 papers all put together. See, look at the citations per publication. It's gone to 10.2. It goes to 10.3, sorry. And then the field weighted citation impact is 1.54, much above the magic number of 1, right? When it comes to the institutional collaboration, means the researchers are collaborating within the institutions. Let us say SRM, there are say 100 faculty members, just an example. Okay, all the 100 people are collaborating within their departments. That is how the definition of institutional collaboration means. So 49% is what is coming out of this particular head. And if you look at the citations per publications, we are at 3.7, and field weighted citation impact stands at 0.70, 30% less cited than the world average, right? So let's quickly go and check published. So here we can have a view, okay, the subject area view, and we have seen the overall, what do you say, the numbers, what we have seen. We have seen the trends also, at the topic levels. Then we can see here at the subject area level, how is our performance. So engineering, computer science, medicine, these becomes top 3. If you look at the engineering, which is the number 1, the field weighted citation impact, the quality metrics of this particular head of this subject area is 0.80, right? So, and within engineering also, if you look at, we have like biomedical engineering basically is doing great, right, at 1.02, which has crossed the magic number of 1 in terms of the quality, and also the architecture is what has done. But otherwise, remaining all are under, like, below 1 magic number, right? So then comes to the computer science. 0.7 is where we stand, which is the second highest researched area, right? And that is also under under 1, right? 0.79 is where we stand. And we can see some good numbers also coming over here. The software computer science software is the one topic which we are comfortably and doing great in this particular sub areas, right? But otherwise, other areas, there is a huge area of improvement we can as well notice here, right? So this is how India between 17 and 19 has performed. Let us quickly look at the top institutions who is contributing here. Right. So of course it's dominated by Anna University. Right. This is sorted based upon the scholarly output. Then we have Belur, JNTU. This becomes top 3 in terms of the numbers. We can as well see the field weighted citation impact also. The corresponding numbers we can see here. If we quickly scroll down, look at where do we stand. We are at 14 number, right? And this is how SRM University stands at 14 in terms of number of research output in that particular matrix, right? This is how our numbers looks like. Quickly, I'll just share you the research topics at SRM University, and then I think I should stop here. I've already crossed the time limit given to me. Right. So when it comes to the SRM University's key research topics, fuel test is what, it was the top researched area. And we are doing good in terms of 80 is what the total number of scholarly output coming. And the field weighted citation impact is very, very strong. Right. SRM University is doing great in this particular topics. This is the awesome numbers I can see, double the world average. Right, so this is how it looks like. and inverter and space vector modulations is the second highest, and this is also doing great. If you look at the top three topics which are being the research done at SRM universities, all three are comfortably crossing one. The quality is also great, not just the volume, but the topic quality is also coming out, and it's very strong performance I could see here, right? So with this, I would like to thank all the organizers, the participants, and also the key speakers and the guests who have participated in this particular session. I would like to thank for giving me this opportunity. Okay, and next my colleague would be taking over, sharing right on the research writing and all. So have a great session ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving nice information about this research trend in India. Yeah, so we will, and yeah, one more thing, that if any scholar or anybody want to have the question, please put your question to the question session here, question answer. So if time permits, we will able to answer few of the questions. So we'll move to the next talk, which will be given by Dr. Subra Datta. She is also from the Elsewhere, and she is customer consultant there. She has obtained her master degree from IIT Roorkee and doctorate degree from Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU. She has about 15 years of experience in academic and corporate research in cell biology and field of drug discovery. She has worked with all the top global pharma companies and have contributed in developing solutions for various clinical conditions and diseases. Currently, she is associated with Elsewhere since last 4 years as a customer consultant, supporting research and institution in their quest for research excellence. She has agreed to deliver talk on the research paper writing. So it is very important for the researcher who is starting their research. So over to you, ma'am. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So, a very good morning to everyone, and thank you to all the organizers for inviting me here today, and Dr. Sanjay for coordinating so well for the presentation today. Let me just start by sharing my screen. Give me a moment. Okay, is my presentation viewable in full screen?
Yes. Shubhra, your voice is low.
Okay, so is my presentation viewable in full screen?
Yes, please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. So today I've been asked to present on how to write an effective research paper. And I think going by my research background, and now I'm working with a information analytics company which is into publishing. I think you will be able to get a lot of insights from how not only what the publisher thinks, but also how the editor, the reviewer looks at your work, and how you should be as a researcher, as an author, to write your journal, write your manuscript, what are the things that you should be looking at, right? Because the journey to getting your paper accepted and published is not an easy one, you'll realize, right? And there are lots of ifs and buts and hurdles in between. But if you plan correctly and go by the process, it is not so difficult, right? So when you get into publishing, you may have your own reasons, right? That you are thinking that I'll get a degree if I publish, 1-2 papers. I may get a promotion in line if I have certain number of papers in my CV. Probably I can get my I can get more funding if I, publish in the right quality of journals, if I have the requisite number of papers, my H index, so my collaborative opportunities may increase. So there may be a lot of reasons when you're thinking that I need to publish, but you have to understand that the editor, the reviewer, the reader who would be reading your work, they are not concerned about these reasons, what you have in mind for publishing. For them, it is the content that matters. So it's very important that you should be ready with the right content to publish. So when you are publishing or you plan to publish, there are a few things that you should have to keep in mind, right? And check yourself, ask questions to yourself. Whatever work I have done, is it new? Is it novel enough? Am I showing something original over there? Who will it interest? Who would be interested in my work? What is the audience I'm thinking of? Am I adding value to the existing information in the world? Or am I just reviewing the work that has been done? People will not be interested in material which carries no scientific, background or validation, which is out of date, which is not relevant in today's time. Uh, you have duplicated something which has already been done, right? And sometimes we tend to change the model also. So but if the model you are planning to work on is not relevant, it'll again go down on interest. The type of journal you publish in will also matter, because they look at these things and then you go for low quality journals, right? And if you're trying to be too ambitious about what your research can do, so you should be a little bit grounded and realistic, right? And for that you need a strong and effective manuscript to present your contributions. Now, what do we mean by a strong manuscript? It means that the message you're trying to deliver should be clear, useful, and of course novel. These are the keywords that you should be taking care of. It should be constructed in a logical manner. It is ultimately like a story you're coming up with. What is the problem? How did you plan to solve it? What did you do? What did you find? What does this mean? Right? So there is a logical flow, so that anybody who's reading it should be able to grasp the meaning, should be able to understand what you're telling in first go. Because you have to understand, you are the best judge of your work. You know your story best. But the trick is to make the reader understand what is your message, what is your story all about. And the first time you send the paper manuscript, right, the reader will come later. But first, when your paper goes for submission, the editor, reviewer, you know, they are busy people. They don't have that much of time. So you have to make things easy for them, so that they grasp the meaning easily and you are not, jumping on different unrelated content together. You're not able to fix them. So first, when you start off, you need to decide what type of manuscript should you be writing. Now that again depends on the type of work you have done, right? So you would have to self-evaluate your work. Should I go for a full article? Do I have sufficient data? Do I have a complete storyline for a full article? Or I have just got some preliminary data, but it is very time crucial that the peer community should know about it. So probably I should publish a letter or a rapid communication in that case with the journal. Now that will be uh, interesting to the journal only and only if your data has thrown up some very exciting information and it is showing the way forward. It is showing the way forward to a new avenue, which is time crucial at this point of time. For example, right now, like corona thing uh, is in demand these days. So you know the new variant of coronavirus has come up. So let's say you are doing an experiment and suddenly you realized, okay, with this new variant, I just have one data, but probably this means that there could be some change in our thinking. So rather than to wait to complete the experiments, get the data, because it will take another few months, couple of months, but since it is a crucial thing, you may plan to submit your manuscript in the form of a letter or a short communication to the journal, right? Okay. Then, of course, you do have review papers, but review papers are generally invited reviews from if you are planning to publish with a higher quality journal. In case of smaller journals, which or their journals which publish only reviews, then obviously you can go ahead with that. But make sure that you do have a body of work in that area, because the editor would be looking at your profile as well. How much work have you published in that area? How do you qualify as an expert to review and comment on the research happening in that area if you plan to publish in a good quality journal, right? And of course, now new manuscript types have also come up, wherein data can be submitted, the methodology can be submitted, any software design that you have created, that can be submitted. So there are various new types of manuscript models are also coming, which you can explore, which journals are catering to such. But first of all, you need to evaluate at what level is your work and what sort of manuscript you want to go ahead with. Now, once we have decided what sort of thing we have, the next thing you would be thinking, okay, let's start writing. But no, I would recommend that you identify the right journal for it first. That is crucial, because once you've identified the journal, then writing becomes easier, because you would have to customize your writing based on you would have to customize your writing based on the journal's requirement, based on the journal's readership, right? Because let me give you an example. I am working on, let's say, I'm developing a testing kit for coronavirus. Okay. Now, the testing kit for coronavirus can probably go in multiple types of journals. It could go in immunology journal if I am, featuring I'm focusing on the antibodies testing. It can go into the biochemistry journal if I'm looking at probably the basic testing that we are looking forward to. It can even go to, let's say, I've developed a sensor for it. So it could go into some signal transduction paper as well. So the data is the same, but depending on the audience, you have selected the journal, how you want to focus your work, and depending on the journal, the way you write your introduction, the way you focus on the uh, problems or the novelty, problems existing, and the novel data that you have generated will decide how you write your introduction, how you derive the significance of the paper in your conclusion. So, selecting the journal beforehand is more important. Now, basic thing you would be thinking that, okay, how do you choose? Right now, how do you choose your journal? Most probably, most of you are just looking at the impact factor, right? Higher the impact factor, the better the journal is. Let me publish. But should it be the only parameter to select? Or is impact factor able to give you the complete information about a journal's suitability for your work, right? So that it gets maximum exposure to the right kind of people. No, it does not happen. So for that, you have to analyze the journal with multiple metrics at a time before making a decision. You can look at the impact factor, but then many journals do not have an impact factor. Then are those journals all not good? No, it's not like that. So we have a matrix that is site score, which is there in Scopus. So it is there for all Scopus index journals. Uh, but if you are working on a, let's say, you know, a different area, if there is a person in chemistry, somebody is working in inorganic chemistry, another person is working in organic chemistry, right? And you tend to publish in a journal. So organic chemistry person, let's say, published in a journal which is having an let's say an impact factor of 10, and the inorganic guy published in a journal, let's say impact factor 7. On the face of it, 10 impact factor is better than 7. But is it? No, because we are not doing the right comparison, right? Because though it is a chemistry subject, but it is getting differentiated into organic and inorganic. So this I'm giving you a broader example. So even within inorganic chemistry, you'll be able to have these niche areas. So just comparing the journal and impact factor is not enough. So probably you should be looking at another matrix, which is SNIP, Source Normalized Impact for Publication. It is available in Scopus, which normalizes across subject areas and gives you apple to apple comparison for any journal that you're looking at. You would want to look at the journal quartile as well, right? Because if you are you're confident about your work, it's good, then you should be going with a higher quartile journal, higher quality journal. But just looking at higher quality based on site score or impact factor is not enough. You should be looking at what is the subject area the journal is publishing in. Does it match the scope of your work, right? Because you are working in core inorganic chemistry and you plan to publish in general chemistry. So do you have enough readers for that? Will you get enough citations for that? Because that's the ultimate aim. Create impactful research, right? Which brings credibility to you as a researcher, which adds to the kitty of your institution for its ranking growth. So you need to look at the citation trend of the journal, right? You would also want to know what is the publication trend. What have they been publishing in the last year? Does it match with your work? Because, you know, journals also follow themes. That this year, let's say it's a broad theme, it's a chemistry journal, but a broad theme it is following. This year we'll publish only, you know, we'll focus a little bit more on nanotechnology. So you look at those things and you'll get to know when you are looking at the last recently published papers. So do that. So all of this, so you have to analyze the journal from various angles to be able to understand what sort of journal will suit your work best. It should not be impact factor only guiding you to select a journal. Okay, so once you know you are there selecting your journal, it is very, very important to read the scope of the journal, right? That's, and you get to know the subject area and everything. So after that, once you've decided your journal, you can go onto the journal homepage and you should be able to uh, just a minute, I'm trying to get a pen. How do I get that? Okay, so I don't have a pen. Okay, here. So you go to the journal homepage. So here we are at the homepage of biochemical pharmacology. Always, always, before you begin your work, read the guide for authors. Now, this is extremely important because although it will give you very, you know, technical stuff in terms of, you know, very boring stuff that you should have the font in this size, this is the font, this is the size, how should the figure be in JPEG, in bitmap, how it should be. So sounds very boring and basic, but it is very, very important because if you miss out on all these things, first, if it's very gross, the editor reviewer will not respect your work because they would think you did not put in enough effort to write that manuscript and make the necessary formatting, right? So if you do not care about your work, so they will not respect that. Second, if it's a basic thing, like, even if your manuscript is accepted or something like that, but if it's a basic thing, they had asked you that the figure legends should have been in Times Roman font in 12 and you did it in 14, right? They can make the changes. That's not the point. But they will send it back to you that this is not correctly done or something like that. One, they realize you're not serious about it. Two, it wastes a lot of time, and time is important. The more time you spend in these things which can be avoided, the more delay you are doing for your work, right, to be published. And quite possible, if it's a hot topic, there could be someone else somewhere in the world already working on such a topic and is ready to publish. So you have to be quick and avoid things which can be done. Okay. Now, when you have started uh, writing your paper, be very clear that you have to be very uh, objective and accurate and brief about your writing, because you have to stick to the point. You do not have to go all over the place. You do not have to touch extra subject areas which is not related to your work, right? You do not want the editor or the reviewer's mind space filled with new notions, new ideas which are not related to your paper. You want to keep them on track of what you want to tell them, right? So for this, it is important that you take care of sentence correction, of incorrect tenses, of inaccurate grammar, right? And using terms which are non-English, French, Latin, or something which are not regular stuff. So do not do that. So always check the guide for authors for such details. So when we talk about sentences, it should be short, it should be direct, it should be in active voice, and very important, one idea per sentence. If you make it a long sentence, multiple ideas, and you put in, it is a long sentence, you put multiple ideas, you're confusing the reader, right? So keep it brief and short. Another thing which has recently come up is reproducibility of the work. It is gaining more and more importance, and all the big publishing houses, all the big quality journals, they are very, very serious about it, that your work should be reproducible. So now they are making, many of the journals are making it mandatory that you submit your data, as well for the raw data that you have collected, data of your work, uh, in a repository for open access and before publishing your work. So many journals are now following this as well. So data sharing can be done with Menley data sets. It's a free to use repository which hosts open data from all disciplines, right? And your data, if you want to make it public, you can keep it personalized also. But if you want to make it public, you will receive a DOI which can be used for citation for other publications as well. Now coming back to the writing of your paper. So the general typical structure of a research article is in this, fish format. So you begin with the title, abstract keywords, then you come to the main text, and then you come to the conclusion and everything, right? So you have to understand that the key point of this first three is to attract the reader, to make him or her hooked to your work, right? So it has to be very effective and efficient and informative as well. You cannot miss out on information over here, although you have to be very brief. The main text, which follows the IMRAD sequence, over here is where the maximum bulk information will come into picture. But you have to understand that the journal space is limited. Sometimes they will give you a word limit, sometimes they will not, but you have to make your work as brief as possible. The longer it is, there is a probability of the reader losing interest and even the understanding of what you're trying to say, because you're using multiple sentences now and you're going all over the place. So you have to be very focused over here. Now, this is the general typical structure of a research article, but this could be different. As in, for any, not all journals will follow this, so that's important that you follow the guide to author. Okay, so why is it important? Because in some journals, it may be that results and discussions are together. In some, result discussion is separate. In some, discussion and conclusion are together. So various journals follow various formats. So you have to be careful, and you should be reading the guide to author before writing, right? The process of writing or building the article, it's your discretion, it's your choice how you want to do it, right? But if I want to share one of the best practices, how you should be doing it, then you should be starting with your figure tables, that is your data, arrange them. First of all, select what all data you want to put it in the paper, because you would be having a lot of material, but should you be putting everything over there? Maybe it's not required. So going back by the theme that you want to showcase in that paper, you select those figures. Once you've selected those figures, it is easy to write the methods for them. It is easy to directly write the result and the discussion around it. Once you have done that, you can go to conclusion and derive the introduction, or write the introduction and derive the conclusion. Either way. And then once you have the skeleton of the paper with you, it's easy then to write the title and the abstract. Because first, if you try to write the abstract, generally what happens, because abstract is a limited page or size of material, or you have to concise your work in, it gets very difficult, right? How do you shorten your work? But once you've written the paper, you know, your kind of creative juices start flowing and you're into the writing mode, then writing the abstract becomes easy. But again, as I said, this is one of the best practices how you can develop your article, but it's up to you. It's your choice how you want to do it. You can go top to bottom also, or bottom to top. It's your choice. Title. Title should be brief, not too long, but mentioning the key theme of the paper. What are you dealing with? What is the subject? Be very specific and short. And you have to attract readers with your title. So if it is catchy, it is better. But just to make it catchy, you remove information will not help. people should be able to understand that if it's a catchy title, they'll get attracted to it. But just by reading the title, they should be able to know what is this paper about, on what subject it is. Then only they'll go beyond that. The keywords that you use, generally we do not give much thought to it, because when you submit a manuscript, you asked for keywords. So you just submit anything which comes to your mind. It shouldn't be like that, because keywords are something which will determine that when a person is searching your paper, whether your article will be found or not. So avoid making them too general, right? Because then they will come up in any generic search. But you need people actually working in that particular area to search for that material and then find it. Do not make it extremely specific, or you're using some very rarely used abbreviation, or some specific jargon that you're using, which people may never use as keywords to search for the topic. Think from the reader's perspective. What would they be typing in the search box so that your article pops up? So think from that angle. The abstract. The abstract is kind of the trailer to the movie. It's to your manuscript. So it's like an advertisement for your article. So the abstract has to be very brief, very concise. So no extra words, no extra information should get into it. So all you have to do is what have you done and what finding did you get. That's about it. And you would have to check whether the journal is having graphical abstracts also. You'll have to prepare that as well. So you have to be very, very precise about the abstract because it has to be limited. Then if we come to the introduction, you would have to start explaining why did you pick up this problem. You would have to convince the reader that your problem or whatever the problem you have chosen is relevant, is significant in today's time or whatever area you're working on. So start off with what is the problem? Are there any existing solutions? Which one is the best? What is its limitation? What do you hope to achieve? Right? So you start, if you see the funnel, you start from being very general and then you make it very narrow and specific and drill down to the relevant question of what you are doing or what you have chosen to do, right, in this paper. Then comes the methods or the experimental details. You have to be very clear about it, that whatever you're putting in the methods, it's absolutely correct, because there would be researchers across the world who would read your paper, follow your methods. So that should work successfully for them as well, right? And most important, what we tend to forget is this: write in the past tense. When we are doing the methodology, you would have to write in the past tense. Results. Results is mainly what you have found, right? Because you have selected your data. So from data, what is that data that you have found? So not everything, but the key ones. And then you do not have to explain that result. Now this is very important, that whatever you are publishing or writing in the result section should be different from discussion. So there's a very thin line. So in result is only about what you have found. That is it. You do not explain it, right? If it is different from any other previous publication, highlight it. If you have a statistical analysis give it. All the results should be corresponding to all the methodology that you've written in the method section. Now, this is very, very important. You should not be giving out extra methods for which you do not have a result. You should not have a result for which you do not have a methodology written. Then be very careful when you are, making your data for a presentation purpose. Do not use crowded plots, which people are unable to understand, right? There should be a scale if you're using a microscopic data. There should be text and clear legends. As much as possible, use black and white in your graphs, because see, for color processing, extra charges are always there. So if you want to avoid that, you should be using black and white. And if you make your figures in color and then they go into black and white, then probably the transition is not that smooth. You'll not be able to get it. So it's always better to do in black and white and use different shades of gray. So firsthand, you are there to know what is different. So you have to be very careful about this, distinguishing color features when it is printed. Do not include extra information, big tables which are not required, which can confuse the reader, extra columns, extra rows, which is not relevant. Keep it very simple. Check what sort of graph which help you give the correct picture of your result. Is it a line graph? Is it a bar graph? Is it a pie chart? What will make it clearer to understand your result? So work accordingly. Discussion. Discussion is one of the most important section of your article. It is here where you will, kind of sell your data, explain why is this important, whatever you have done, why is it important, why this data is novel, or how does it bring significance, right? So for that, you have to check whether your result relates to the original question. That is the question that you asked in the introduction, that these are the limitations, is in discussion. You'll have to connect back to that, right? This is the problem we had mentioned, and this is how we are solving it. Is your data different from others? If yes, then why is it so? You have to explain it over here. Does the data or the results that you've got, does it have limitations? Explain it here, right? So do not make statements that go beyond the results, what the results can support. Do not suddenly introduce new ideas. Work on whatever you have been talking about since introduction. Do not confuse the reader, right? Okay. Conclusion. Again, very thin line between discussion and conclusion, but you will not repeat what you have discussed in discussion. Discussion is exactly about, the word says, discussing the results that you have attained. Conclusion is looking at the bigger picture of what your work signifies or denotes, or what future roadmap is there for such work, right? Do not summarize the paper in conclusion, because you have done it in abstract. So in conclusion, nothing is to be repeated, not the result, not the discussion, not the introduction, not the abstract, right? So you have to be very concise and specific about how this work can be used in other areas, perhaps. What is the future roadmap? What else can be done over here? So references, please stick to guide to authors for referencing, for the referencing style, the way the formats have been done, and avoid any change in the formatting. It's easy if you use a reference management software like Mendeley and work to your benefit. I'll quickly cover ground now because time is running short. So cover letter, be very specific in your cover letter because that's your only chance to communicate with the editor directly, or showcasing your work to the editor directly, right? So you have to sell your manuscript to the editor, right? So you have to tell him or her why this manuscript is suited for the journal, right? And what uniqueness does it bring? But do not be overambitious and just claim anything which is not there. Always go for a peer-reviewed journal. Non-peer reviewed journals are not accepted anywhere. So be very, very clear about them. Lot of journals these days claim that we are indexed in Scopus, we are indexed in other websites, and you pay us this much money and we guarantee you publication in 1 month, in 1 week. Do not fall trap to such journals, right? And stay away from such journals. So we can have a separate session on that. There are a lot of material available online also, how to check for those journals. When do not be shy or scared about the reviewer. You should be knowing what the reviewer is looking at when he's or she is going through your paper, right? So is your paper clear, concise, in a logical manner? Is the title denoting what is exactly in your manuscript, or you have just made a very sensational title and doesn't fit with the content inside? Is the abstract able to describe the purpose of your work? Is the methodology fully explained and relevant references given? Are the figures in line with the guide to author instructions? Are the tables clear, right? Or there could be data which could be omitted. Is the discussion of the findings relating back to what you have mentioned as in the introduction, right? Conclusion, have you been able to place your work in a broader research context? And references, have you used correct references? And there is a good balance of the new material and old material as well. So do not be scared of revision, because in peer review, they may accept your paper, they may send you for revision, they may reject your paper as well. So do not be scared about revision if they come back. Always address each and every query that has come up to you, even if you do not agree with the reviewer, because of course you know your work best, but you should be able to provide your response and the logic why you do not agree, right? Be careful about the issues of plagiarism, falsification, of duplication of data or publication. This is a gross misconduct and is taken very seriously, and your paper, your work could be banned from a lot of journals. So be careful about that.
Excuse me, Dr. Subra.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how long it will take more? Is it finishing?
We are done almost, sir.
Okay, fine. Please.
Just one more slide.
Okay, yeah.
So whatever I have told you, a lot of this information of how you write, how you select your journal, how do you write a cover letter, everything you can find, and more information you can find on our website, the Researcher Academy, which is from Elsevier. So all this is free to use. Just create an account and start working on it. If you have a Science Direct or a Scopus account, you can directly use that. And with this slide, I will end my presentation now. What are the things, this is just in a nutshell, what are the things that you should be taking care of while writing your manuscript and before submitting to your journal of choice. So thank you so much. And if there are any questions, quick questions that we can take,
Yeah.
then probably yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Subra. It was very informative talk. Really, I think most of the research scholar and also other academics might have enjoyed this and maybe useful for them. Actually, they have posed one question that this PPT can be shared. So I think this is a live stream to recording, YouTube recording, so they may get there. And if it is possible, if you can share, then it will be good for that. That will also share this thing to our research scholar.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. It was very nice presentation. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
There is one more question, Sanjay, in the chat box.
Yeah. So one more question is there. Good morning, ma'am. One reviewer not satisfied the paper get rejected. In this case, can I submit again in the same journal? Is it possible?
A very good question, I would say, because generally a paper usually has 2 or more reviewers, but if let's say a journal is having only 1 reviewer in place and that person has rejected your work and you resend your work, it's highly unlikely or next to impossible that your paper would be accepted, because it will go to the editor will see your previous history and he'll see that this has been rejected for so and so reason. Best thing, if the person has rejected your paper, you can always write back that based on whatever, because for rejection also they would have given you some reasons. If you do not agree to their reasons, you can always write back to the reviewer through the editor, of course, that these are my reasons and why I feel that my paper stands a chance to be scrutinized again. You cannot resubmit. See, there's a difference. In the first submission only, you have to go back and have a discussion with the editor and the reviewer. You cannot resubmit because your history will show that this very journal had rejected your work. So they will not take the pains of having the entire process again for your paper, which has already been done.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. We will contact you again later. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Have a good session, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So over to you, Malar.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Now I request Dr. Venkataprasada Bhatt to introduce the speaker, Professor Chandrabas Narayana, who is the speaker of, who is the next speaker. He is Director, Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, Thiruvananthapuram. Over to you, Dr. Bhatt.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, a little less.
Okay, good. Hello?
Yes, Dr. Bhatt, you are audible.
Okay. So I'm very happy to introduce Professor Chandrabas Narayana, today's keynote speaker. He is a director of Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, Thiruvananthapuram, and also a professor at Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Bangalore. So he is going to talk to us on Raman spectroscopy for energy, environment, and health. So he is an accomplished scientist and interdisciplinary research leader, and his specialty is in Raman spectroscopy. So although he is trained in condensed matter physics, his PhD is from IISc Bangalore in physics, and later he did postdoctoral taken the postdoctoral experience in Cornell University, USA. But he has developed a keen interest in biology within a few years of joining at JNCSR Bangalore, and his group at JNCSR has become one of the expert group in Raman spectroscopy and its applications, especially in drug-protein interactions and diagnostic applications of Raman spectroscopy. So many of his work in these areas are trendsetters in this interdisciplinary research. So we are very grateful to have him as one of the speakers here in this colloquium and conference, where we are encouraging interdisciplinary research activities. So along with his interest in biology, he is continuing his research interest in physics, chemistry, and advanced materials, and application of Raman spectroscopy related to various applications. So he is member of several governing and advisory bodies. He is coordinator of 2 major synchrotron projects for India, and also served as the Dean Research and Development, Chairman of the Chemistry and Physics of Material Units, etc. at JNCSR Bangalore. And he has several publications into his credit and 3 international patents, a couple of which are on the verge of commercial research. And fellow of prestigious academies and won several awards. So I think the list goes on. So I'm very happy to request Professor Chandrabhas Narayana to speak on Raman spectroscopy for energy, environment, and health. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay. And you're able to see full screen also? Are you able to see the full screen also?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay. First of all, let me thank Venkat Prasad Bhatt, our own student from JNCSR, who has been associated with me for a long time. And thanks for inviting me, Venkat Prasad. But it is really a pleasure to be part of SRM conference, which is actually a nice idea to bring together all of us who are working in this energy and health. Today, actually, I am going to also advertise on the Raman spectroscopy's use on various things. And you would have just recently celebrated the National Science Day, which happens to be due to the discovery of Raman effect itself. And so Raman is a very powerful tool. It was not gaining importance in the initial stages until the discovery of the lasers. And then once the lasers were done, Raman was easier to use. Today, Raman spectroscopy is not a characterization tool, but it is a very, very important research tool itself. So my talk, I will actually have few examples from my research to tell how Raman actually can help in research in energy, environment, and health. So I've divided it into 2 parts, health and energy environment as one. And I will actually give a very small, brief introduction to Raman, just for keeping in continuation to understand what I'm actually talking about. So which basically is a light matter interaction. And when light interacts, most of the times it is transmission, emission, reflection, absorption, and luminescence. But along with that, we have elastic scattering. And this is very, very important, but people do not realize the importance of this, because if you want to understand how I see you or you see me, it is not because of any other thing but the elastic scattering. I leave that for you to find out why I did say that. Along with that, we do have shifted frequencies, which are blue shifted and red shifted lights. And this is what Raman actually discovered. So it can be easily demonstrated. And that's the reason why Raman got the Nobel Prize, because if you work with organic molecules, you can see the elastic scattering here, which is looking like white, but it is not white, it is blue. In your camera, you have three colors being detected, RGB. And if they all get saturated, then you actually get white light. And that is what is happening here, because the intense blue light is coming and the blue light is having a larger spread, and it is actually causing the whiteness in the system. But if I filter out the blue light, I can see the shifted frequency, and this is what Raman actually discovered. And this is very much important because this gives you the property of the material, and many physical phenomena as well as various chemical and environmental effects on these molecules can be detected by using Raman. So Raman is a method for determining modes of molecular vibrations. That's what Raman actually said, and describes the inelastic scattering of light from matter. So it's basically, we are actually inducing, and it is dependent on the electric field and also on the polarizability of the molecule. And this is what is giving you the elastic term, and this is the inelastic terms. And here is the anti-Stokes, and this is the Stokes, and this is the anti-Stokes part. So both of these are present. For every vibration, you will have a different set of these values coming up. It is a weak phenomena, but even though it is a weak phenomena, but it works for materials which are actually of common things which you find around you because of the Avogadro number. You can see the Raman is actually 1 in 10 to the power of 7 elastically scattered light. So it is a very, very small number, but unlike absorption, so that's why absorption is used most commonly. But because of this Avogadro number, which is actually working, because 1 mole of any material will have 16 to 10 to the power of 23. And that is the reason why we can still see Raman from most of the materials very easily. But it becomes difficult, and I will actually talk to you when it comes to working with biological systems. And there is a need for enhancing this. And that is called the surface enhanced Raman, which I will be describing later. So to begin with, I actually start showing you something where I have been working extensively in metal organic frameworks. And all of us know that porous materials are one of such materials effectively exploited in various fields. It can interact with atoms, ions, molecules, not only at the surface, but throughout their bulk. There are many types of porous materials, which is inorganic, organic, micro, macro, meso, porous materials. Then you can have confined spaces created like pores, channels, and sites. You can also have combined characteristics coming from that, like it can have rigidity and regularity, flexibility, responsivity, intrinsic and guest induced. All of these things are very interesting properties which happen. And large surface areas are created for various properties. And you know that whenever you have a larger surface area, it produces a lot of interesting properties coming up. Significant pore volume also can be created. It is very tunable. You can actually play around like anything in this one. And that's why in the past 2-3 decades, MOF has caught the imagination, and it has actually become a very, very vibrant area. And many researchers work in this area. But my idea is not to create these materials, but try to actually use Raman to tell them how to tailor the properties better, or make the property better, or try to understand why it happens. So in a sense, when we are looking at it, you can have zeolitic kind of systems, or you can have conjugated organic polymers. You could this allows MOF to be a traditional application in various things like storage, gas storage. So it becomes energy applications, or you can do sequestering or separation of gases, or catalysis. You can do then magnetism. Various other properties can be done with this kind of a system. Now you can see the kind of uses which is emerging today, and all these are now available in the literature, and people have actually been looking at it. So you can see there is kind of sensing which can be for solvent and gas sensing, or DNAs, or various other kinds of things which can happen. Then you can use it as a delivery. So biomolecules can be delivered, or drugs. Then you can sequester and separate. So it can be using metals, solvents, various other kinds of things. And then it can be also a molecular motor, molecular transport mechanism. So it can actually be used in that. Electronics also, they have been showing very interesting properties like semiconductors, low dielectric materials, conducting films. These have all been shown. Then you have bioreactors, and you have, so you can use it for growth of cells, surface biofunctionalization can be done. Then it is also been demonstrated recently for use in optics, where you can make a Fabry-Perot, you can make a luminescent molecule, thermochromic molecule, or a photochromic system. Energy production is another big thing in MOFs, and I would also show you some examples of that here. Thermal and water splitting and photovoltaic is the regions in which they have shown applications. Of course, it also does catalysis, and so both photocatalysis and stereocatalysis is possible in these things. So there is a lot of applications for MOFs, and so that's why these MOFs become very, very interesting itself. I have been fortunate to work with one of my one of our good students. In fact, his name is Jairamlu. He was an excellent student. From his student days, he used to interact with me. Today, he is a faculty in the chemistry department of IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, Jammu. And I have been collaborating with him, and we have a huge number of papers which have come out of it. And recently, we have been working closely when he started his postdoc, and from there till now he has been interacting with me. So Jairam and his postdoc advisor Ronald Fischer have been in Technical University Munich, had started collaborating with me whenever they had very many problems with their understanding of why something is happening, or try to tell an explanation why things are happening. So they used to contact me, and we used to work together, and many interesting and very highly cited papers have come out of it. So the kinds of MOFs they have been working in that were MOF materials with various practical applications in it. So you can see they are nanoporous MOFs. Then graphene MOF hybrids, they had actually started making many for many applications. Then you have two-dimensional MOFs, and you have also MOF derived materials which they have made in these, and you can see the kind of impact it makes in the literature. But the fundamental problem which is faced by most of these is we are interested in finding out structure changes or defects in these MOFs. Very, very important thing. And this is one area where MOFs require a lot of help. And then interaction of host with guest. So your MOF with gas or solvents or molecules, it's very important to actually understand that. Why does it happen, and how do we do it? Then we also have mechanisms and identification of intermediates, which are actually necessary for establishing the mechanism in catalysis or electrocatalysis or various other kinds of things to understand that. So how do we move forward? And that's where I would actually propose Raman is a very, very important tool to go forward in this direction. So continuing on this kind of work, we actually started working on graphene MOF hybrids, which have possibility for carbon dioxide gas interactions. So this is because there are a lot more surface areas, lot more reactive places where the carbon dioxide can be absorbed. And this was actually recently published in Advanced Materials this year. And so this is a chemi-resistive carbon dioxide gas sensors. We can demonstrate carbon dioxide molecules interaction with amine-based functionalized pores with respect to the temperature. So this is a video which we will demonstrate how we make these kinds of graphene MOF hybrids in this system. We take, so graphene actually becomes functionalized, and this functionalized graphene is actually adsorb or make pillars of your these MOFs, nanoparticles. And then you can have the next graphene layer come on, and you can actually make a very large hierarchical pores with pendant formation, pendant functional groups present in these things. So this is a very nice way they had come out with this kind of arrangement, and this has been highly appreciated in the community of MOFs to create new structures. So you can actually create very, very interesting pore hierarchical structures where you can absorb specific molecules and you can tailor them and do many functions in this one. So in this process, they have actually done, the group has explored these graphene MOF hybrids for successfully exploit even oil spill separation from the water. So I'm talking about environmental effects, okay? So oil spill separation from water, electrocatalytic water splitting, then you have supercapacitors, lithium-ion batteries, and biosensors. So all of these things have all been demonstrated using this kind of systems, and many of them required our help. So I will take one of these examples only and then try to demonstrate how we actually use Raman to this effectively. So we were working with a graphene-based system, which is actually a hybrid system of graphene acid and amine functionalized UIO66 amine, showing hierarchical pore structure. So you can see how this is actually formed. You have these graphene acids here, and they actually add these UIO 66 nanoparticles, amine functionalized particles. And these are forming very beautiful hierarchical structures. And you can see it has a very excellent carbon dioxide absorption, which happens in this system. And it actually goes to show that there is also gas absorption, which happens much, much larger than normal in these systems. So we were actually interested in looking at these chemiresistive property, and we wanted to understand how does the carbon dioxide molecule adsorb in this, and what is exactly happening, and why a particular temperature is the reason why it happens. So let us go and look at it. So you can see the resistivity of the pure MOF and graphene acid itself. And once you mix this graphene acid with your MOF, it actually gives you a very good resistance, chemiresistance, which is low in 10 to the power of 4 region. Okay, that's the ohm per ohm. 10 to the power of 4 ohms is the resistance which it gives in a combined way. And now what we see is that this is actually highly responsive for the gas, carbon dioxide gas, compared to the graphene. Graphene itself doesn't show, but the response is very, very good when you have a combined. So we wanted to understand this. And you can see here the cycling, as well as you can actually see different concentrations. You can actually see adsorption, and you can repeatably do this. And it's a very beautiful system which can show that you can detect carbon dioxide adsorption in this system. So this has been shown, and recovery times are very good, and all of these things is so it's a highly very good system to find out this chemiresistive absorption. So what we did is that we did Raman of this system with temperature, as well as with not only with temperature, but also in presence of the carbon dioxide. So we are actually looking at certain peaks which are very characteristic to this, and we are only concentrating on those peaks which are important and not everything else. So here you can see this is the amide peak, which is C double bond ONH peak, which is where the amine functionalization is there. And this is your Fermi resonance of the carbon dioxide. So if it, and all of you should realize that carbon dioxide is very difficult to see in atmosphere. In normal Raman of carbon dioxide is very difficult to see in 1 atmosphere. So here you can see at 1 atmosphere, you're able to see that means carbon dioxide is absorbed into the system. And now you see as you increase the temperature, increase the temperature, as expected, the peak is decreasing. But as soon as it reaches around 150 or so, it actually starts to stop decreasing. And this means there is a strong interaction of the carbon dioxide happening, and uptake is increasing in carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide uptake is increasing, and this is stabilized. This is unusual behavior, that it is actually not increasing or decreasing. And as soon as it reaches 200, beyond 200, you start seeing that it is actually going up. So what exactly is happening here? And this is true with even NH peak as well as you see here. So this is because there is a strong interaction between the amine and the carbon dioxide. And this amine and carbon dioxide is actually interacting quite strongly. And beyond 200, what is happening is that the amine is not retaining. Carbon dioxide is able to come out, and it is actually much freer in the environment, and it is no longer adsorbed onto the system. I mean, it is getting dissociated. It is coming back to the original value of carbon dioxide when it started off at room temperature. So this behavior was seen, and this was quantified to see if the MOF is actually getting affected. So you have taken the D and G band of the graphene acid, and also the C double bond O, which is associated with the graphene acid, to check whether the graphene acid and your MOF is actually disintegrating. And which you see there is nothing happening, just a gradual decrease, which is the expected behavior of this kind of system. So this behavior of not softening too hard, because these are not changing, this softening means there is a strong interaction which is happening. So that is another thing. To compare this, we have taken the carbon dioxide's intensity versus the D peak. And again, these two show a very strong variation, which shows that there is a strong uptake of CO2 in the system, and there is a decrease in the CO2. Now, this shows that the actual carbon dioxide absorption is the best between 150 to 200, and it's the most efficient at 200 degrees centigrade. Now, let us look at the response curve. And you can see exactly the same behavior, that the response curve is actually best between 150 to 200, and 200 is the highest, and exactly after 200 it is coming down. So you can see how effectively we can give a molecular picture to what is happening in the system. So this is the power of Raman. It actually tells you what is happening, where exactly it is interacting, how is it interacting, and what is happening beyond a particular time, why the response is not better after 200. It should have been increasing, but it doesn't happen after beyond that. So basically what is happening is that at this point, the kinetic energy is quite high for the carbon dioxide, that it is not able to be stabilized there. It is actually breaking up and coming out, and it is interacting like a free carbon dioxide band. So there is a particular temperature beyond which that absorption goes off, and that's the reason why it is happening. So this is a beautiful example of it. Next, I will quickly, because of the time limit, I will just show you some other quick things about catalysis in this thing. I've been working with Professor Tapas Maji of my Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, and there he has been working with many interesting honeycomb structures. He has created this by bringing together hybrid structures, and he can get very beautiful pore sizes. And they are honeycomb itself is very interesting because it has selective carbon dioxide uptake. Okay, but more interestingly, what happens is that these become templates for capturing nanoparticles, and the nanoparticles like gold, silver, palladium, platinum, copper oxide nanoparticles. He has demonstrated with these nanoparticles, and once they are actually stabilized, and they are about 1 to 2 nanometers or so, and they are very good catalysts for here. And then in this paper, they had demonstrated that this is a palladium nanoparticles of 1 to 2 nanometers, which are stabilized inside these pores. And that actually can mix up and produce a new molecule itself from the starting compound. So this becomes like a very good catalysis coming in the system. So this is how the hierarchical structure is created into a 2D sheet, and you can actually reduce the nanoparticles here, and you can create this inside these pores. Now the question is, when we see such a pore and we are actually having a nanoparticle inside, right? What we expect is, how is this nanoparticle being stabilized in the system? So the question is, does the structure change? Does it have any problems when a nanoparticle is there? And what are the interactions happening in this system? So this is where the Raman comes in very handy to explain what is exactly happening. Though in X-ray, you can't find out whether these bonds are formed or not. Okay. Now, the stabilization of these nanoparticles, is it inside or is it formed and it is outside the pore? So this is where we can see. Now, what we have done is we have taken the pure hexagonal form, and we have taken with palladium, and we have also demonstrated after few catalytic reactions, like 4 cycles or 5 cycles of that, how does the MOF and the nanoparticle remain. Now, very importantly, quickly, I will tell you that you can immediately see all the peaks have shifted to lower frequency, which means that there is a strong interaction happening between palladium and your MOF itself. So that means the palladium is stabilized inside the MOF because of the strong interaction. So softening of the peaks are there. Now, very importantly, the peak associated with the C double bond O and C double bond C of the oxalate and also of the carboxylic group, you can immediately see that there is a 2-peak formation happening here. Now, this 2-peak formation is very important because it looks like a doublet here. It is basically, the reason is that you are having a possibility of a pendant formation. That is, you have a C double bond O, palladium, C double bond O. It's like a kind of a mirror image of this two. And this is actually causing an interaction between the 2 frequencies, and it is actually forming a Fermi doublet. And that means these kinds of formations are there in your system. These kinds of formations are present in the system, which is actually giving you the doublet. And even after multiple cycling, you see the intensity of the peaks are going down, but that doesn't mean that the integrity of this particular system is going down. So many information we are getting from this Raman thing. Now, the next one is about use of, so one of the interesting applications is to produce lithium ion hybrid capacitors for fast lithium storage. And this is where Jairam was actually working on. And here Jairam actually demonstrated that you can make manganese systems in manganese in 2+ state is actually stabilized in this system. Now, you can immediately see that it works because you can see the capacitor functionality is here. Because of lack of time, I won't go into the detail of this construction. So they actually demonstrated that it works. But the major question here is whether manganese is in 2+ state or not. And this is the question which has to be answered very importantly, because this is not easy to tell from any X-ray or any of the other probes which you can do. And it is very difficult to do many of the other tests in this. And Raman is very easy to do in this one. And we can easily see that the graphene G band and D band are there. And it is very important to see that MNO peak, which is happens to be around this 850 or so, 625 or so is there. It's a very clear signature for it to be a manganese 2+ state. So you can actually stabilize, you can say the phase purity of manganese in this particular case, because it's very important that manganese is in the 2+ state to actually be able to do this work. And that's the key for this success of this particular work in this material. So again, I have demonstrated. So in the energy aspects and environmental aspect, I have shown you, this is a small summary of what I have shown you, is it is a powerful tool to identify structural defects, Lewis acids, as well as possible defects in MOFs. It is also very good for gas adsorption, like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and temperature and pressure dependent we can do. It also looks for the phase purity of metal oxides in MOFs, which is very, very important. Many times people are actually interested in knowing that. And then it identifies intermediate species under mechanistic steps. That means while it is undergoing a catalysis or any of those things, it can actually find at time stat. So in operando applications are possible. But always we need to realize that we should combine this with X-ray and neutron diffraction techniques to get a very good understanding of the system itself. So I would not say that complete understanding can be derived always with Raman, but if you combine this with X-ray and neutron diffraction, it becomes like a very, very powerful tool for understanding many of the materials which are used for energy applications and also for environmental use. Now, I come to the health part of it, and the next 15 minutes or so, I will actually explain to you how I use this in applications for health. So as I said, it requires a little bit of enhancement because Raman is not easy to do on biological systems. So what we have realized is that there is a technique called surface enhanced Raman, which is basically a nanomaterial induced, especially metal nanoparticles, which are actually gold or silver. And these nanoparticles, when the molecule is adsorbed next to it, because of the plasmon creation, surface plasmon, which is basically because of the electric field of the electromagnetic incidence on the nanoparticles, you have this electron clouds which are mostly from the surface, and that is actually oscillating, and that oscillations actually have a specific frequency, and that's the surface plasmon which happens. And presence of the surface plasmon actually has a strong effect on the electric field felt by the molecule. And this is very important because I had shown you that it is very much dependent on the electric field of the incident light, and that is enhanced considerably in this case. So there are two types of enhancement. Most of it is actually electromagnetic enhancement. So there is a cascading effect, and the molecule actually experiences very large fields. And this enhancement can be up to 10⁸ enhancement. So that itself gives you a very good thing. But chemical enhancements can be possible if there is a chemical bond formed between this metal and the molecule, and then you would have Raman actually being facilitated through the metal surfaces, and that gives you about 100 times. So roughly about 10⁻10 to enhancement to 10⁻, even in certain cases we have gone up to 10⁻15, 16 because of the resonance enhancement also. Now, to do this protein systems, you just adsorb the nanoparticles onto the gold or silver nanoparticles and then put it under the microscope so that you can actually use this as a micro Raman setup. And you can do it. And this is the kind of concentrations which we use. And so we can go up to 10 nanomolars or even 1 nanomolar. We have done it for many proteins in this case. And we don't need to incident the light more than 3 minutes. We don't need very high intense laser lights. It's about 5 milliwatts. So it can be done very beautifully. These are commercial setups. But we have also developed our own Raman spectrometers, so we can actually make it, because ultimately it is very important if you want to develop in health. You need to be able to do it yourself, like a handheld system or a system which can actually go over a 96 well plate or something. So we have demonstrated this, and we have created these ready. And now we have even given it to a couple of people after making it. So this is how the nanoparticles would look like. It's very easy. Most of them are citrate caps, so they are negatively charged. So because they are negatively charged, we expect the positive surface of the protein would be the one which will be absorbing on the nanoparticles. In protein, very importantly, the structure and function is very, very important. So structure is mostly because of the secondary structure, which comes because of the primary sequence of the protein. And these secondary structures are either alpha helix, beta sheets, and also random coils. That means it is not actually having any particular shape. So this is very much dependent on how the hydrogen bonding is between the peptides, C double bond O and NH. And hence, the peptide vibration is very, very important for knowing how the structure is changing. And you can see, interestingly, this is actually a coupling of C double bond O stretching and the bending of the NH in plane. These have the same frequency, and that's why they form a resonance. And they produce 3 different kinds of modes associated with it. And these are the different vibrations associated with it. And in that, one of the strongest one is amide 1 vibration. There is amide 2 and amide 3, but most often we look at amide 1 because it's very, very beautifully telling you how much, how is the concentration of different types of folding in the system. And this can be easily seen, and we can actually know the ranges of this. So you can deconvolute the spectra, and then you can actually identify how much of it is beta sheets, anti-parallel, beta sheets, parallel, then alpha helix and random coils. All of these things are possible. So we were actually looking at one important concept, because today we are interested in knowing how the structure of certain restriction enzymes. Actually, restriction enzymes are very, very important in biology, and they are mostly stabilized by divalent ion. And we wanted to understand how does this structural changes happen when you change the divalent ion in the restriction enzyme, and that changes the property of the material. So we took one of the restriction enzymes, which is actually a bacteria, which causes pneumonia, and that bacteria cuts the DNA at specific sites of a virus. So it is actually its defense mechanism. So it uses this as a defense mechanism to cut the DNA of the viral so that it doesn't get affected by the virus itself. So this is a technique which is now very, very important, and this is what people actually do for creating these protections against various pathogens. So this has become, now this is very much activated by the divalent ion, and you can see that the cutting is very high fidelity when you have a calcium. Whereas when your magnesium is there in lower concentration, it is high fidelity. But as soon as you increase the concentration of magnesium, then immediately it actually causes to have promiscuous behavior. That means it can cut anywhere. It doesn't actually limit itself to the specific site of cutting. So this is what made it is difficult to get crystal structures of the protein. So if you would have had the crystal structure, it would have been easy to understand. But from the various modeling, we can understand that the calcium actually goes into an histidine region, HNH region, and also it connects itself to the EDD region, which is very, very important regions for this systems. These are all amino acid symbols. Okay, so so the question is, without the crystal structure, can SIRS provide molecular insight to the binding of the metal ions? So this is the question we asked, and differentiating how calcium and magnesium work. So you can see here that this is the modeling which has been done. So this is the different alpha helix, anti-parallel, beta sheets, and how the different ions are actually bound here. So you can see here, zinc is very, very important in all of these enzymes. So this is the zinc finger, which is called, very important for any protein. And the zinc is always bound here. This is the 2 zinc part. So this is how the protein is understood. And you can see the HNH motif and the EDD motif here. So this is the asparagine, which is actually the D, and glucanic acid is the E, which is happening. And you would actually use that for studying this. Now, this is the model we have actually created, and we understood that the surface, we need to understand how does it sit on top of the nanoparticle. So we looked at the charge on this, and we can find that the positive charge is more towards these regions, and this is the lysine rich region, and that is the lysine part of it, and that is the one which is actually binding to the nanoparticle. Not binding, it is actually the anchoring point for it. And your active site, which happens to be only about 17 angstroms, that is 1.7 angstroms. So we would be actually able to see any changes happening in this region. So now this is how, and it's a dimer. It is not a single protein. It is actually combining of 2 proteins together and forming a dimer. And that's how it is actually present in the system. Now, this is the dimer formation. And then you can see this is the alpha helix, and these are the beta sheets. And I have actually colored them. And this is how the Raman spectra you would get. And if you look at it, not a trained person, then you won't be able to understand. But we are actually going to look at the regions. This is the regions mostly with aromatic amino acids. And this is the region for the amide region. And you can see, I expand that amide region, and you can see this is the beta sheets. And this is the alpha helix in the system. So you can easily identify it. Now, when you have no metal ion, this is the situation. Now, what I do is that you can actually add magnesium ion. And when we add magnesium ion to the KPN, and I actually expand the region of the amide, you can see that there is no change happening at all. So magnesium is not changing the structure of the protein itself. It is, amide structure is not changing, it remains same. So that means there is no change happening in the system. So what is exactly happening here? So when magnesium is binding, it is binding in the region of the HNN, and that region it is binding, but it is not going to change anything. The beta sheets remain beta sheets, and alpha helix remain the alpha helix. There is no change happening in the system. Now let us see what happens when you put in calcium. The moment you put in calcium, you can immediately see a peak arising around the random coil region. That means partially the intensity of the beta sheets are coming down, and you are having an increase in the random coil. This is in the amide region. And now this can be understood from our modeling that yes, when you actually have a beta sheet here in the EDD region, they immediately, calcium binding causes it to actually become a random coil. And that is what is the reason why calcium is actually able to do a high fidelity in the system. This is required because this calcium is actually binding into it. Now we can actually expand and see the MD simulation and see what exactly is happening. So this is the EDD motif of the system. So when magnesium is binding to it, magnesium is not changing this structure. So it doesn't change it. But as soon as the calcium is bound, you can see a loop is formed. That means it is a random coil formation here. So this is a very important, and you can actually superimpose the 3 of them. So if you look at it, it is cyan color is the pure system. Green is actually with calcium, and magnesium is with the purple. And you can immediately see in this region, the calcium is actually making it. And because of that, there is a subtle variation in the structures happening. And this is the reason why calcium is actually doing the job much better than the magnesium. And that's what we had actually said. And quickly, I can tell you that it is very easy to do this. Another quick application of that is, can we use SIRS as a tool for screening possible drugs? That is this, and I will go quickly over it now that I've given you the full thing. So we are actually looking at the JNK kinases. So JNK kinases are very important because it is C-Jun N-terminal kinase, which means kinases are actually the ones which attach a phosphate to the protein, and this is by taking ATP to ADP. So this is an energy packet, So it does phosphorylation of the protein. And so this is doing a phosphorylation of the C-Jun protein. So this is a JNK kinase, which phosphorylates this particular protein, which is a very, very important protein in the system. Because whenever the JNK is highly sensitive to external stimulus, and it causes a lot of abnormal phosphorylation to C-Jun, leading to many diseases. All of these diseases are linked up with this particular kinase, and it's a very, very important therapeutic kinase. If you can actually control this kinase, you can control many of these diseases. And that's why people are interested in finding a drug for this. So in fact, I will quickly go through because of the lack of time. I will actually, because there should be some time for asking questions also. So what I'm showing you here is that this is one drug molecule which was actually found out, and people wanted to improve this drug. That is what people do, try to make new molecules from this. Derivatize it and then try to make a new molecule. And then this is how the structure of the kinase is known. And this is where the molecule is binding. So it is actually binding to the active site. And that is how the inhibition is actually happening in this. So it stops the kinase activity in the system. So it is not there are two types of drug molecules which work. One of them is competitive. It is competitive means it doesn't allow the substrate to bind. So it is actually going and sitting here. So it is a competitive drug. There can be another type of a system where it can also do a attachment somewhere else, making the active sites a little bit different so that the substrate cannot bind. That's called the surface binding systems. So this one is actually a competitive drug binding. So my group, I was collaborating with Guru Rao, who is in IISc, and there they were actually changing this. So they, instead of the primary molecule, they attached an amine group here, and they made 3 molecules because chlorine, if you attach it here, it produces a hydrophobic environment here. And it is an hydrophilic environment. So you are actually tailoring those things. So that's what people do. So chlorine actually has an effect on this. Now they also made another molecule, which is actually sulfate here, methyl sulfate. And they also attached chlorine. And another one is an azo group, which has been created, and then they attached it. So they had these 9 molecules, and they were finding very unusual behavior that some of them are working better, some of them are not working. And what is the reason why this is happening? So most of the times, synthesis of new molecule is done by people. Then they do biochemical studies. Then they have to do mouse model, and then they have to do X-ray crystal structures to understand where it is binding. And then you will be probably nearing the stage of clinical trials and others if it is working well. But what we were trying to do is, can we reduce the burden on biochemical studies on this one? So can we use it as a screening tool to avoid many molecules created, and then without doing the biochemical, we can actually tell that this will work, this will not work. That is the idea. So that is the question we are asking in SIRS. So what we did is we took JNK1 and JNK3. There are JNK2, JNK3, all of these things. There are different types of, but they are very homologous systems. They're very close to each other. So you can see when you superimpose them, most of it is actually matching. And but there are subtle variations in the shapes, a little bit of changes happening. So you can see it is actually 92% sequence is identical, and you have only small changes happening in the alpha region and beta region, and you actually have some specific amino acids which are actually changed in the two systems, and that is the all is happening. So the active sites are actually working. So we again did the modeling and found out how this will be attached. And one of the important thing we realize is that the distance between the active sites and the nanoparticle is about 16 Armstrong. So that means we will be actually seeing it. There is an important thing I wanted to tell you, that all these molecules, whichever have been synthesized, are insoluble in water. And if they are insoluble in water, that means they cannot be seen in SIRS because of the nanoparticles being in water. So we can never get the spectra of these molecules. But if they are bound here, we will be actually getting the spectra of the molecule. And since the molecule is an organic molecule and it has a lot of pi electrons, it will actually give you much stronger signal than the protein. So this is something I wanted you to realize, and that's how we would be going forward. So when we did the Raman, we could identify the amide regions of this particular system. But what we wanted to do is, because we cannot look at the protein spectra, it will be saturated by the spectra of the sample of the molecule. So you can see there are different spectra happening here. So these are all different molecules which have been added to the protein. But what is important to see is that the intensity of these peaks, and the intensity depends on how much of concentration of this particular molecule is present inside. That means how is the binding. So intensity is directly related to the binding itself. So what we see from here is that the intensity is highest for RAN2 compared to many, even the primary compound. It's much higher than the primary compound itself. So that means there is a stronger binding for RN2. And in fact, when you look at it, it is the best binder also in the system. Now we can do it for JNK3 also, and we can find that in JNK3, RN2 is much better than the SP, but not too much, because they both are very close to each other. Now, why is that? There is two different types of binding. So we'll only consider what is happening in RN2. It's RAN2 itself, and we'll see what is the system. So when we look at the spectra of both of these things in JNK1 and JNK3, you immediately see that most of the spectra remains the same, but there are some intensities which are actually varying. And these are intensities associated with the pi electron rich amino regions. The aromatic regions. And you can immediately see that it is because of the two different orientations of this particular molecule. And that is the reason why, with respect to the nanoparticle, that you are able to see. Now that is happening in the two systems. So there is a flipping happening in the system. And when you model it, you can immediately see that the chlorine is facing this side in JNK3, whereas chlorine is inwards in the same pocket in the system. So the reason why these two are having totally different behaviors and intensities and others, it's because of the orientation. So we can even verify the binding is indeed happening in the different ways in JNK1 and JNK3 in the molecule itself. So we could verify this particular aspect, which is very difficult to see without X-ray crystallography. So we actually have demonstrated that this could be a very good screening tool, because we can tell about the binding of the system, as well as we can actually look at this thing. So I come to the end of the talk, and I would like to thank all my students who have been the reason why I can speak so many things. And all my collaborators, some of them I have shown in photos and some of them I have acknowledged here. I would like to thank DST and also many other projects which I have actually got for funding. And thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the wonderful talk, giving us an example how to do research across various disciplines.
Your voice is weak. Can you speak louder?
Hello?
A little more louder. So sound was coming less.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful talk. You have shown us how to do research across various disciplines, how to connect physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, everything. So I hope there will be some queries already. One question I think that box. You would like to answer how useful is MOF in delivering drugs, or for that fact a vaccine for a period of time?
For the fact, vaccine for the period of time. Okay. So the question, I think what is being asked is basically, can MOFs be a good method? See, one of the things you have to realize is that MOFs are organic molecules, and they can actually be toxic to the system. So first thing is we have to make MOFs which are actually made up, which are biocompatible. So there is a need for creating MOFs which are biocompatible, and they should be able to release the drug at wish. That means it can be pH driven, it can be thermal driven, it can be, because all of these things are present in your body. So your pH variations will be there, or you can actually release the drug when you have temperature. So certain cells will have a higher temperature, very minutely, about 1 or 2 degrees. It should be able to be sensitive to that. So all these things have to be tailored. There have been successes in MOF being used as a drug targeting thing, but basically what are we actually targeting? That is one important thing. And second thing is cytotoxicity. Toxicity has to be tested. So both of these things, if we can do, MOFs become a very nice thing because they are actually cages. They can hold molecules, and they can specifically hold a particular molecule rather than anything else. So the advantage of this specificity and ability to form nice pores to hold molecules, otherwise what happens is most of your drug molecules are insoluble in water. So you have to make a solubilizer. You have to deliver it. All these things can be avoided because they can hold it in a hydrophobic pocket and then take it into the system and release it at wish. And that's the kind of thing which people are actually looking at. So it requires a lot more studies in MOFs to become a potential drug delivery tool. But yes, chitosan is one of the systems which people have used for making MOFs, and many other kinds of things which are actually present in our body, and they can actually be used easily in the system. So there is a lot of study needed, but there is a lot of promise which is existing in the system.
Sir, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Sir, first of all, thank you. It's a very wonderful talk.
Thank you.
And another thing, proteins can undergo configurational changes at different pH conditions.
Yes.
So these configurational changes can be detected by Raman?
Yes, yes, it can be detected. Yes. So in fact, because I said amide structure gives you the configurational changes, right? Secondary structure changes, it can be easily said.
Yeah.
So whenever there is a configurational changes happening, the amide peaks will actually vary, and we can correlate. Means because I was doing only SIRS, if I do a real Raman, I can actually even see by doing a UV resonance Raman, I can actually see which groups are actually responsible for that. So we are doing that. I mean, I didn't show you those. So I can actually tell you exactly why these conformational changes are happening and how that is leading to certain properties in the material, in protein itself. So yes, Raman is a very powerful tool. And now we can even, if it is pure Raman, you can do computation also. So you can actually see that. Today, I'm working on a similar problem where aggregation is happening. So one of the things, which I will be publishing soon, is basically if I take a lysosome, and if I change the its pH, it actually unwinds, and it's a dynamic process. And today I am simulating it and trying to understand how the unwinding happens. And it's not that easy. to understand how the unwinding. So now with the Raman and this, I am able to understand that there is a dicysteine bonds which are actually responsible for it. Now I can actually see it in Raman, the dicysteine bonds breaking, and I can simulate that in the in your system and see why that is going to cause aggregation in the system. And this aggregation is very, because this, as the previous question was there, drug delivery. You can actually trap a drug molecule inside this lysozyme, and lysozyme is actually a non-toxic material, so we can actually deliver that for drug delivery. So this is something we are just ready to publish, and that's something happening. So yes, we can
I have another question. Suppose you have two pathogens in the same sample, can Raman distinguish them? Because amide bond may be same actually.
Yes. So in fact, this is one thing which I am right now in RGCB we are planning to do, because we have a huge number of pathogens which are present here, a repository of all the pathogens. And there is already a lot of studies being done with using Raman for pathogen detection. In fact, I have demonstrated that if I have a search substrate, I can put the pathogen and I can detect if it is E. coli or if it is some other thing, you can actually detect it. So now we are trying to make fingerprints for this. So once we make a fingerprint, we know for which pathogen, what mode has to be looked at. Then we can easily screen that which is the pathogen which is present. And this is something which is what we are working. Yes. So there is a lot of potential in that.
So in that case, do you think that a particular pathogen will have unique fingerprint?
Yes, of course. Yes, because each of the pathogen, the cover itself has a different set of proteins and different set of lipids and different set of cholesterol molecules, various other things is present. So these are very, and by the way, here Raman, you cannot talk about one single molecule. It's a combination of all of these things. So there is a specific signature which comes out because of this. It's like a DNA. So Raman is used for DNA fingerprinting. So DNA is such a vast, big thing, right? But there is a clear signature which comes in, which is like your hands. So that feature is very easy to actually correlate. And today, forensic sciences, they are using Raman when trace element is there. That means you cannot actually get too much of DNA from it. You can actually do it on site, Raman. So this is a big study which is happening in forensic sciences. So if DNA can be detected like that, I can distinguish whether it is a crime is done by a particular person or not. Then it is easy to find out pathogens also. So that is the reason. It should be, it is, only thing is we have to work. It's in a right environment. You have to standardize everything. You have to find out that there is no noise. If you have multiple this thing, there should not be combining effect because there will be convolution. So you should be able to see clear signatures which are far away from.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chandrabhas Narayana. Let us thank Professor. Let us all thank Professor Chandrabhas Narayana for giving this wonderful talk. And thank you, sir. You really shown us how the Nobel Prize winning discovery is giving directions to researchers in energy RAST, environment RAST, health RAST, and competition RAST. Thank you very much. We would like to take you for lunch, but this time virtually.
We'll have a virtual lunch. We'll have a virtual lunch, yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and thanks, Venkat Prasad Bhatt.
Thank you, sir.
For inviting me. It is a pleasure. I wanted to visit Saram, but unfortunately this didn't happen till now. But now I was hoping that when MRSI was going to be hosted, I would have come there. But unfortunately, the pandemic actually stopped it. So I hope I'll get the next opportunity to come there and interact with all of you. It will be a pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I can log off?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Mother, you can announce.
Yeah, Malar ma'am, we can announce to the attendees.
Yes, thank you all the participants of the technical session. So with this, the oral presentations and are coming to an end. And next is the poster session at 3 o'clock. I believe all of you are familiar with the guidelines for the poster presentation. May I request one of the poster committee member to brief a little to the attendees? Anand, Dr. Anand?
Yeah, good afternoon. So the posters instruction to post the posters in Slack platform would have been already sent to you. If you have any doubt, you can contact the student coordinators. They can give proper instruction. In addition, all the details are available in the DPRC portal also. So there will be evaluators for each and every posters. They have assigned one evaluator for 10 posters. So they will visit your posters. Be ready with the Google link. So you have to paste your Google link in the chat box. They will get into the meeting through the Google link, and then they will interact with you. And then we have given the evaluation sheets for them. So they will evaluate your posters based on 5 different criteria: novelty, and then slide preparation, your communication, and then research and discussion and conclusion. Okay, there are points for that. So the evaluators will enter their points into the evaluation sheets. Finally, the committee members will check the points, and then they will give best posters awards also. If you are having any doubt in putting poster into the Slack platform, don't hesitate to contact us. Actually, we are here to help you. So anything else, I think that should be okay. If you have any queries, you can contact us, no problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you, Anand. I believe attendees are clear about it. So DPRC poster session starts at 3 p.m. today, and most of the information is available in DPRC 2021 website under the tab program schedule and guidelines and program schedule. It is available under that tab. All the files are uploaded in it. How to do, which session you belong to, your poster belongs to, all the information is available in DPRC website under guidelines and program schedule. Please go to that, and helplines are available. You can contact for any difficulty that you are facing, either uploading your poster in the Slack channel, independent channel, or you have difficulty in meeting the evaluators in Google Meet. So any doubt, please contact us. We are available, and the poster sessions for today will start at 3 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we wind up this session?
Yeah.
Bala? Yes. Bala, are we going to leave this?
No, ma'am. So we have to leave. Yeah, we have to leave.
So I have a local recording going on here. So maybe that will be there, and we can also download it in YouTube.
But the meeting can be closed, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to close this meeting because next is only 3 p.m., right?
Yes.
So can I close it?
Yes, madam. Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
So your